I have no good news on this topic, except for this. I suck at political prognostication since 2010. 2010 is the last time I remember being right, or at least being right before everybody else, or early. In 2010, I was in Washington, D.C. I was writing for the Daily Caller, and I said around this time of year, like March or February, it's April right now, but early in the year, I said that the Republicans were going to win the House of Representatives in 2010, and they had a shot at winning the Senate. And it didn't seem like that was that bold a prediction, but everyone acted really weird about it. But, Obamacare had just happened. Everyone was mad about it. I think the special election for Teddy Kennedy's seat in Massachusetts had gone to that guy Brown. It just seemed like an easy call, and of course it ended up happening. But anyway, since 2010, when I happened to be right, I suck at predicting what's going to happen in politics for a couple of reasons. One, I think like Cougar, I lost it and turned in my wings. And two, yeah, seriously, like I just lost the edge. I don't know what happened up there. I was so scared. And two, everything changed. Things got weird. And I can't even to this day put my finger on how politics changed and got weird. There is some discussion that perhaps there was cheating in the 2012 election and helping Obama to get a second term. And I'm like, fine. I mean, I thought Mitt Romney was going to win, but I don't really care. Would President Romney have been that much better than Barack Obama? Seriously, would Romney in charge of anything be any good? But I had President Gingrich out there. Like, oh my gosh, I was wrong. Anyway, so I would say take that as the only bit of hope in what I have to say about what I think is happening in 2024. And it's this. We are seeing polls in favor of Trump now in April of 2024. Nothing like we ever saw in 2016, certainly not in 2020. He's ahead all over the place in all kinds of districts and states by a margin well beyond anything you can overcome by a pipe bursting in Atlanta and shutting things down. And oh, look at all the mail-in ballots we just found under the table when we thought the CCTV was turned off. Like, you can do that when a guy's winning by a bit or a fair amount, and most importantly, when you haven't done it before. But now everybody's looking at the election results. And sure, they could still just insist, as they have done for the last 4 years, that an obviously fraudulent election was on the level, and as I say, the fairest election since a caveman first asked for a show of hands, and you're an istophobe if you have any questions whatsoever. But that works only up to a point. Hey, Enzo. When it's a complete slaughter, which is, according to current polls, what it looks like one can expect in Trump's favor in 2024, then you can't really mail-in ballot your way out of that one. Plus, I think a couple other things are happening. And before I go on, let me just add this proviso. This is all under the assumption that Joe Biden's going to be alive and be the nominee for the Democrats, and that Trump will be alive and may or may not be in jail and the nominee for the Republicans. For a long time, I thought that the Democrats were going to, and I think maybe a lot of you did too, Democrats were going to swap out Joe Biden for Gavin Newsom, I think, at the convention. I never really believed the Michelle Obama thing, and that horrible woman in Michigan, I never really believed she would be the one either. For them to swap out. I thought it would be Gavin Newsom, but I don't know. It just feels like that ship has sailed. Like the momentum for that idea, I'm not hearing anything about it. It doesn't seem to be part of the zeitgeist anymore, because I think crazy old nasty Joe Biden, who was always nasty, even before he had his brain melted on him, he's not leaving. He's not leaving the White House without a tag on his toe. And Dr. Jill doesn't want to leave either. She wants to wear her, moo-moos and for the cameras. Hi, Enzo. So I don't think, God willing and the creek don't rise, I think Joe Biden's going to be the nominee for the Democrats. And on the Republican side, I mean, it's so funny that we can't talk about whether or not Trump is popular with the Republican. Hey, Enzo, come on. Come on. Yeah, it's all you now. Come on. We got to talk about whether he'll be allowed to be the guy. Come on. You want to come back up, Peach? Enzo, up. Here we go. Up. You. Nope. Traffic jam. We can't talk about that. We got to talk about whether, he's going to be allowed to be the guy. Here's what's going to happen. I think they're going to find him as guilty as they can on as many counts as they can. All these stupid, trumped up trials against him. And I think they're going to put him in jail if they can, for at least for a little while. But as we've seen in the polls since all these stupid indictments began and continued, it was never, that hasn't hurt his popularity. So unless they kill him, which I think they'd love to do, I think Trump's going to be the nominee as well. I think even if he's running from a jail cell, he's going to win the election because the margins are just too large. And I think once he becomes president and he has his second non-consecutive term, it's going to suck for a few reasons. Some to do with him and some to do with external factors. The external factors are as follows. The U.S. economy, particularly the state of its currency as the reserve money for the world, and the absurd debt situation. This is a real problem. This is a real problem, heading for a crash that none of us who are alive have ever lived through before. The U.S. dollar as reserve currency is the reason that America has been able to live the life that it lives. As you may know, in 1971, President Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard. That is to say, people around the world could no longer exchange U.S. dollars for gold. He just said, we're welching on the deal. That's not how it's happening anymore. Simultaneously, more or less, he dispatched Henry Kissinger to the Middle East to meet with OPEC and arrange what we know as the petrodollar system. That is to say, when people buy oil from OPEC, particularly Saudi Arabia, they pay for it in U.S. dollars, or they have done for the past 53 years. So, 50 years. So that's why when all these wars in the Middle East, they weren't for oil. Okay, it's not that the U.S. doesn't have its own oil; it has tons. So does Canada. It's because the petrodollar system had to be protected. Because if everyone needs U.S. dollars in order to purchase energy under the system, then the U.S. dollar remains a de facto sound money currency. It's backed not by gold anymore, but it's backed by other people's oil. If that makes any sense. But now, with this ridiculous Meshuggah cockamamie war in Ukraine that the Americans and NATO positively had to have, and oh my God, and thought they were going to win. Oh, give me a break. Countries around the world, particularly the BRICS countries, China and others have made deals with OPEC, with Saudi Arabia, where they can now use their own currency or various currencies to purchase energy. So it has fractured and is on the way to destroying the petrodollar system. And when the U.S. dollar is no longer the reserve currency, when you can't simply print money to inflate yourself out of any problem, which is what we've been doing for 50 years in the United States, you're going to see the life that we've lived in the West is gone. And nobody can make or fix anything anymore. So it doesn't work if you don't have that particular silver bullet. So that's one thing that's going to happen. It's on its way, accelerated by the war in Ukraine, and nobody can stop it. You've also got the debt situation in the United States. I know it's a boring topic, but I'll just give it to you in a couple of things. In 2009, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet was about $900 billion. Now it's about $9 trillion. If banks in the United States today had to mark to market the way they were required to do in 2009, they'd all be out of business. Okay, because this level of debt is completely insane, and it's never been seen in the modern era, and it's not just unsustainable, it's not even serviceable. Interest payments on the debt are going to be like $1.1 trillion. But the idea of the full faith and credit of the U.S. government not being worth anything anymore is very much becoming real. And there's no way that it's not slowing down, it's getting faster. So whoever happens to be president at that time is going to preside over a complete and total disaster. I think the powers that be, the people who would if they could, once again find all kinds of mail-in ballots to put their preferred person in charge, don't get to have their preferred person because Joe Biden has welched on the deal with them of one term in which to wreck the country. He wants to stay. So they're like, you know what? Go ahead and stay, Joe. We're going to let the election play out. Trump, you want to be president? Fine. Go ahead and be president. And that's when it's all going to come crashing down because of those factors that are external to Trump and not necessarily his fault. The stuff that is his fault, well, that's going to suck too. I am nowhere near the first person to propose that Trump's biggest problem as president is and was personnel. Because I think a guy like that who is so solipsistic, so massively egotistical, cannot see other people for what they really are. They think of other people as being an accessory to their own brand. Or they look at someone who's obviously a square peg and decide, I'm going to put him into a round hole just to show what a great leader I am, what I can do with people. And I can give you examples, but you probably have some in mind as well. Anyone who took a look at Mike Pence and said, oh yeah, he should be second, that's the first personnel choice. He should be second in command. He should be the guy. Obviously, you got a problem. Anyone who looked at Deborah Birx and Anthony Fauci and didn't see exactly what they were from day one. Trump ran for president and won in 2016, averring that America should be non-interventionist or shouldn't be picking fights and starting wars all over the world. And then what does he do when he gets in? He takes John Bolton, that psychopathic walrus, and makes him his national security advisor. He takes a hawk like Mike Pompeo and puts him at CIA and state. Well, dude, you know why? It's because he can't read people, and so it's all, well, who do I know? Who's the guy? And like a lot of egotistical, narcissistic people, Trump is deeply insecure. So even when he's president of the United States, he's bragging about how Bob Woodward will take his phone calls. Well, yeah, because you're president of the United States. Anyway, I've seen nothing to indicate that Trump's going to do any better with personnel or with judgment. The reason he's not president right now, the reason he lost, quote unquote, in 2020, as I said I was going to say a previous video, but I think I have only one really previous video, is that he didn't understand what was coming at him. He didn't understand them when it came to the virus or Operation Warp Speed that he's still bragging about like a schmuck. And he didn't understand what was happening with the election because he's stuck in the 1990s, right? This normie-con civnat, hey Enzo, notion where he doesn't really know what's happening. So he says stuff that made sense maybe 30 years ago. We love our police. Don't we love our police? Well, the FBI are police. You love them too? Seriously? Those mindless, just following orders frogmen hopping around Mar-a-Lago? Oh, we love our police. Look, the American people, ground level, just normal people understand that their biggest threat to them, to their safety, their security, and their liberty isn't China or Russia. It's the U.S. government and local governments and state governments personified by police, by state enforcers with badges and with guns. Yeah, I know, you might need them sometimes, but the whole banging on, bootlicking about how great cops are and how great government institutions are, as a man who's been as victimized by government institutions as anyone in public life, he still hasn't learned his lesson. So I see nothing to indicate that Trump has learned anything about how the system works or draining the swamp. And personnel, he'll probably pick, my guess, Ben Carson or somebody like that, somebody who won't overshadow him, someone who won't outshine him on the stage, a quiet, competent-sounding person, which he thought Mike Pence was, didn't realize that he was Mike Pence. So pick someone like that, but the rest is going to be a total disaster. So that's what I think. I think there's not a lot of reason to expect. Biden mania is not about to sweep the nation. Biden's not going to get elected. They're not going to be able to drag his barely animated corpse over the line this time. They're going to say, you know what, Trump, you want it? You can have it. Go ahead and be president, and it's going to suck. It reminds me of that line that Woody Allen had in his speech to the graduates where he said, we're at a crossroads. One path leads to utter hopelessness, and the other to total destruction. Let us pray we have the wisdom to choose correctly.